Ozzy Osbourne passed away. I didn't come to Ozzy on my own. I didn't hear Ozzy on the radio and say, oh, that's pretty cool. My fucking uncle hooked me up with Ozzy. You know, that's how Ozzy gets around. Ozzy gets passed down from generation to generation. And it's going to continue even though Ozzy's gone. I am sad that Ozzy's gone. But at the same time, like, Ozzy lived past the expected lifespan of an average person. So when you think about the level of debauchery that Ozzy Osbourne has taken part in within the scope of his lifetime, most people felt Ozzy was not a guy that was meant to live. I mean, 76 years? That's a hell of a run for a man who snorted ants. The man who wrote Snowblind. The guy he loved getting fucked up. He loved living life. And God knows, I mean, who could say they've lived more life than Ozzy Osbourne? So I'm not here to be sad about it. Ozzy lived a great life. He did amazing things. He carved his name in the face of history. Ozzy, if you look back to where he starts, Ozzy always tells the story about when he first heard the Beatles. It was like going to sleep in black and white and waking up in a colorful world. And based on that, Ozzy went forward with the idea of being a performer. The guy was he is the greatest heavy metal frontman ever. I don't give a fuck what nobody has to say. Every metal band that has ever earned $1 owes something to Ozzy Osbourne and the members of Black Sabbath for founding and birthing heavy metal. People talk about what was the first heavy metal. Some point back to the Beatles, Helter Skelter, Jimi Hendrix, Led Zeppelin. But the bottom line is there is one big bang moment in the history of heavy metal, and that is when Tony Iommi and Ozzy Osbourne get this idea, let's be to music what the horror genre is to film. Simple concept. Nobody had ever thought of it before. That is the moment that metal was born. They talk about the Big Bang. They say the thing about the Big Bang is that it's still happening. That's why the universe continues to expand. Because the Big Bang, that explosion, it was so huge that it's still happening out at the edges of space. And that is the case of the Big Bang that was Black Sabbath. It is still happening. When you put on new bands, you're hearing the remnants of the Big Bang that Ozzy Osbourne was such a huge fundamental part of. They were all on drugs. People act like Black Sabbath were over there clutching their pearls at Ozzy. The bottom line is they were all on drugs. Ozzy was just way more on drugs than them. And so he was becoming an insufferable drug addict, total fucking mess. So they shit-canned him, and you would have thought Ozzy was done at that point. The story goes that, he was just radioactive. He went to a hotel room, he got as much cocaine as he could, and he was ready to fucking die.
To me, you seem like a dude who knows what's up.
But a young up-and-coming agent, who would come to be known as Sharon Osbourne, her dad was an agent, and I guess she was looking to get her foot in the door or whatever. At this point, Ozzy was just sloppy as fuck. He was fat. He was just a total mess. So yeah, Sharon Osbourne comes, finds him in his shithole hotel room. She scoops him up. Ozzy was such a supernova. Clean him up is a relative term. Basically, she got him upright again. They fall in love, and before you know it, as unlikely as it would seem, Ozzy Osbourne becomes one of the biggest rock stars in the world. The thing about Ozzy is he hid nothing. With Ozzy, everything was just on the vest, man. You knew it because he would fucking admit to it. And I think that's part of what endeared him to people, is that he was very flawed and he let you know about it. Everybody has like a family member who's got a drug problem or has a mental health issue or something like that. And, you know, they might do fucked up things here and there, but you're you gotta love them anyway. You gotta support them anyway. Ozzy spent the whole last half of his life attempting to stay sober, but at the same time, he would acknowledge, like, dude, I'm never far from a relapse. Underneath it all, he was just a very blue-collar, normal dude. He wanted to have a family. He wanted to sit in his fucking house and play with dogs and fire guns. I mean, like, he was just a dude, man. Ozzy was directly responsible for a lot of the biggest rock and heavy metal acts of the last 50 years. When you look at it, I know Nikki Sixx says that Motley Crue, that they credit Ozzy with giving them their start. And then just look at the Ozfest. Think of how many big heavy metal bands got their big break from being on the Ozfest. The festival started up initially because Ozzy wanted to get on Lollapalooza. And they were like, fuck you.
You can kiss my ass!
Metal was not seen as being cool. And as a result, you know, there weren't a lot of places for metal bands to play in those days. And so when Ozzy got given the fuck you by Lollapalooza, him and Sharon, they said, we're starting our own festival, the Ozfest. And over the years, like I said, there's an entire generation of kids who, you know, it was, well, kids, they're fucking grown-ass people now, that it was there like every summer. That's what you do. You knew at some point during the summer, pinnacle was going to be when you and your homies got together and all went out and spent the day at Ozfest. And you knew it would end with Big Ozzy, sometimes with Black Sabbath, sometimes by himself. But over the years, I mean, just when you think about it, okay, the obvious biggest band that came out of Ozfest was Slipknot. Slipknot started on the second stage. They were unknowns. By the time it was done, they were headliners. Other than Slipknot, you had System of a Down. I remember seeing Incubus there when they were second stage. And not only were they second stage, they were second stage like early in the day, you know. I also remember one year going, and I was at the spot getting a beer, you know. And this dude literally comes running up. This bald, stone cold looking heavy metal motherfucker comes running up. And he goes, dude, this fucking band is about to take the stage. Everybody's going fucking crazy. Everybody's saying they're the next big shit, man. And it was Disturbed. And they were second stage. You know, Static X, Cold Chamber, Kitty, Mudvayne. I mean, if you really sit and think about it, there's so many bands that came out of the Ozfest. Ozfest every year, it was so well curated by Sharon and Jack and Kelly, because Jack and Kelly had a lot of input into the bands. But every year, it was almost like a yearly snapshot. It was like the state of metal. You know, you'd show up, you'd see all the new bands that were in the pipeline. You'd see the bad motherfuckers, the current kings maybe. And then it finished with the titans. The gods came down from the mount. And you'd hear the likes of Judas Priest, Slayer, Pantera, and it would always finish with the king himself, Ozzy Osbourne. It cannot be overstated the value and the impact that Ozzy Osbourne had. There is no replacement. From here, it's interesting to see what the future looks like. I literally have never known a world without Ozzy Osbourne in it. In a weird way, like, you could always depend on Ozzy. He'd always show up. He'd always be there. He is one of the most underestimated dudes ever, because you look at him and you hear him, he could barely even fucking talk coherently. Even when he was young, I mean, when he was old, it at least kind of made more sense. But when the lights would come up, that's when Ozzy would fucking turn on, man. And you could always know, even if this motherfucker couldn't even move, he'd be out there kicking ass because he's Ozzy and that's what he fucking does. Anyone should be so lucky to live half the fucking life that Ozzy Osbourne has lived. He leaves behind a great family. He leaves behind an amazing legacy. Who could have done it better than the Godfather of Heavy Metal? Now moving on to his place as the Zeus of heavy metal. He is truly the top motherfucker. I'm going to have a drink for Ozzy Osbourne this weekend, maybe 2 or 3. Salud to Ozzy Osbourne. God bless you. Thank you so much. It cannot be overstated how much everybody owes Ozzy Osbourne. Everybody that gives a fuck about hard rock and heavy metal. It just wouldn't be what it is without Ozzy. So thank you very much, Ozzy. And anyways, moving on.